Okay, Kate, you ready?
Ready.
Okay, excellent. Okay, this is the Economic and Development and Employment Committee of Brooklyn Community Board 2 is called to order and is being recorded for public access and archiving in accordance with the New York State Open Meeting Law. It is the practice of CB2 to conduct remote meetings with all committee members' cameras on. Public attendees are also encouraged to leave their cameras on, particularly if you are given the floor to speak. All attendees, please keep your microphone muted when you are not speaking. To maintain appropriate discussion and voting process, I will make it known when and which topics are open for comment by committee members, board members at large, and the general public. If you have a question that falls outside of the public comment time, please type your questions in the chat panel and we'll address them as time permits. You may also email the district office at any time outside of these meetings. Okay. We're committed to providing access for all neighbors, okay, regardless of the physical ability or limitations. If you require accommodation or assistance for full participation, please contact the district office 72 hours before any public meeting. The committee secretary will now conduct roll call. Members should speak their name and with their camera on.
Hey all, starting roll call, we have Chair Bill Flanoy, Vice Chair Denise Peterson. Hey Denise, I see you. Catherine Gilman, Secretary, that's me. Latrell Mosso.
Hi, this is Latrell.
Hey Latrell, I hear you. Celeste Staton.
Celeste is not here.
Ronald Cohen.
Mr. Cohen is not here either.
Lindsay Einhorn. I think Lindsay's trying to join us shortly. Maisha Morales.
Here.
Hey, Maisha. Catherine Yearwood Young.
Not here. I think she's in Europe.
Okay, Catherine's out. And then Ciro Scala.
Here.
Hey,
How
Ciro.
you doing?
I'm doing great. Okay, we are all set.
Okay, excellent. Okay, may I have adoption of the agenda, please? Motion for that? I do need a motion to accept the agenda, please.
Make a motion to accept the agenda.
Thank you, Ciro. Second, please.
Seconded,
I
Maisha.
second it.
Thank you. Appreciate that, people. Okay, if there's no exceptions or questions, we'll accept the agenda as spoken. Okay, the minutes from September 22nd. If there's any questions or issues in regards to that, please email the secretary and we'll have the corrections then. With that, we have a presentation currently right now by the Atlantic Avenue Business Improvement District. I believe Kelly Carroll, are you here present? Okay.
Yes, I am.
Kelly, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much. And I'm joined by a few board members here tonight, so feel free to jump in as we discussed. Nice to meet everyone on board 2. My name is Kelly. I'm the new executive director of the Atlantic Avenue Business Improvement District. I want to focus mostly on an issue at hand, but very briefly, I come from the world of advocacy, specifically in land use historic districts. So I'm very familiar with working with community boards, and I want to take this opportunity to say I really hope that we can work closely together. I understand the BID has been in a bit of a lapse of leadership. Really since 2019, there hasn't been an executive director for more than a year. So I would very much like that to change, and starting with outreach to me, please keep me informed. I'm here for you. I want to be the go-to resource for the district. So if you have issues that come up that you feel are better allocated for us to deal with, please give them my number or email address. So for those of you who've may not be familiar with the BID, we are the advocate for all things Atlantic Avenue, but especially being the primary liaison to over 300 small businesses. So in that vein, we are concerned this evening about a proposal, nascent proposal by DOT, which would directly affect our small businesses. Namely, there is an idea going around right now, which I'll break down into 4 parts. So I would like to give the board a summary of the issue, followed by our board's position, followed by some preferred outcomes, and then ultimately what I would request for the committee and ultimately a full board's support of this issue. So if I may, essentially right now the Avenue has 3 truck loading zones, and the DOT is proposing to increase this number to 18. This constitutes a 500% increase in loading zones currently. Thank you so much for the map. So right now the 3 loading zones that we have are towards the western end of the district, which are highlighted in this light kind of pink. Perfect. And everywhere you see a proposed, which is orange, is where the total of 18 will go in. DOT is being pressed to do this because of local law 178, which is pushing them to install 500 of these TLZs in a year. So we're slated to take quite a bit of that for our district. Our main issue with this is that there was no outreach to the BID with this proposal, or the CB2 Transportation Committee, or even our merchants. If you're going to conduct a study of where truck loading zones should be, you should probably talk to the people who need things loaded into their store. Which brings me to our board's position. A huge issue with how the corridor is currently used involves placard parking, both where it's legal and where it's being illegal. Illegal meaning air quote placard, as I like to say, people who write notes with certain license numbers that they work for the city. We already have a lot of placard holders parking in these loading zones. I check every day. There's cars in the Trader Joe's loading zone, and they don't move. They're there all day. So just introducing these new TLZs doesn't mean that they'll actually be available for delivery drop off for our merchants. And on top of that, you know, delivery to merchants is only one half of the coin. The other half of the coin is we need parking spaces for people to come who ultimately buy these things from the merchants. So our preferred, and there's been no study of the corridor comprehensively. The idea to install these things was based on a walk down the avenue once in the morning, once in the evening. Culled data that fit their need from a few different sources, but there really needs to be a more comprehensive plan before this extensive rollout happens. So our preferred outcome is a general pause, please. We would like a more comprehensive study of all of these factors. We would like to work with DOT on this issue specifically, so that we can best inform what the next steps are. We also need an assessment of all of this placard parking in itself and its effect on the district, because maybe there's a solution in that itself. The board recommended a rollout of these TLZs in a staggered fashion, as opposed to just dropping all of them on the avenue at once. Especially in the context of the BQE closure and how this is going to further affect our corridor. And there is a whole list. I know it was submitted to the board, but these are the highlights. And another idea was to have these TLZs operate as multi-purpose parking areas. So deliveries and during certain times of the day, and customer parking at other times of the day, based on when these spots are used by each entity the most, which could be gleaned from just a better understanding of how our street is used. And finally, better enforcement to eliminate all of this illegal placard parking. That seems to be at the heart of a lot of the issues in terms of movement and congestion. And as to date, we don't really have a grip on how these are being enforced. It appears that there's not much enforcement whatsoever. I have said a lot. I would like to leave a couple minutes in case any of my board would like to chime in. But basically, our request to the committee and to Community Board 2 is to just, if you could support us to direct EOB to work with the bid during this process to best address the needs of the district, the needs of the merchants, and that would start with essentially a better detailed study of the corridor, not just just a couple of walks. So I'm gonna stop there in case I know Sandy may have something to add.
Okay, Sandy, wait.
Yeah, I unmuted. No,
Wait,
Kelly.
no, Sandy,
Oh,
please.
Sandy, wait. Yeah.
Wait, okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Kelly, right now, I will only allow board members of Atlantic Avenues to speak. Okay,
Understood.
okay. If Sandy's a board member, she can speak.
She is.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay, Sandy, you may speak.
Thank you so-
Identify yourself, Sandy, please.
Okay, so Sandy Balboza. I'm actually on the Transportation Committee. I'm not a board member of CB2, but I'm a committee member, and I'm also a board member of the Atlantic Avenue bid, and I live on Atlantic Avenue. Kelly did an excellent job. She laid it out very well. I think there was one thing we had on our list of recommendations to allow, allow the use of fire hydrants for non-commercial loading and unloading. It's done anyway, but the merchants get hassled, and it would be for cars that just drop something off to a store, and they're not sitting in the fire hydrant. So that was the only thing I think Kelly missed. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. Kelly, do you have any other board members present?
On the Atlantic Avenue bid, I see Kate Gilman and also Anuja, and I believe that is it. And I see Kate's hand up.
Okay, we'll only allow board members to speak at this point in time. Okay, Kate, could you identify yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Kate Gilman, and while I'm the secretary of our committee here on CB2 with economic development, I'm also a recent new board member of the Atlantic Avenue bid. So I want to state that for our record and for any conflict that may come up from that. But just a full support of Kelly in this new role. We're so excited to have you and to work together. And from my understanding of this, a same perspective of really needing a bird's eye view on Atlantic Avenue and a thorough assessment with our merchants, and having a new ED at the bid, feeling like the opportune spokesperson for Atlantic Avenue to work together with DOT on this, versus kind of unloading a large amount of change on the avenue without all of that in place. So my full support for Kelly and for what she's kind of putting forward to us here. And I know we'll have a discussion around it. I know Sid's also on this call as well. So I'll chime back in, but just to introduce and to disclose membership obviously is a part of both groups here.
I have a question.
1 second. Oh, Denise, 1 second. Let me just let the board
Yeah.
continue. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
Anuja, is it Anuja? I forgot, I'm sorry. Is she your board member, Kelly?
Yeah, hi. Sorry, I'm not on camera at the moment. I'm in the middle of a few things, and super excited to have Kelly on board as our new ED. We've struggled over the recent months to really organize ourselves and support our constituency. So I think I speak for the entire board when we say that we're really excited and ready to really make an impact in the community.
Okay, thank you. Okay, before we get into discussion with the committee, I'm going to give an opportunity for any public individuals who are here to have a comment period. You'll have 3 minutes and 3 minutes only to make comments, not ask questions, make comments about the proposal that's currently in front of us. Is there anyone here, public members, who wish to speak? Okay, seeing and hearing none. Okay, I will now allow members of the DOT to speak in response. Raise your hands, please, so I can identify you. Mike. Okay, Mike, please identify yourself and you have time to speak.
Yes, thank you. My name is Mike Lenore. I am a planner here at the New York City Department of Transportation in planning and a parking planning division. And I'm the one who's been working on this plan for the truck loading zones on Atlantic Avenue. Very happy to hear everybody's input on this. We're excited to be working with everybody. I do have a short presentation I could give. I don't know if that's part of your plan. If not, I'd also be happy to answer questions. There are a couple of very brief things I'd like to correct.
Mike, by all means, I'm giving you the opportunity to do a presentation right now and to counterpoint.
Okay, well, let me run through it. Let me get this thing started, and I'll share my screen. Will I be able to share my screen?
Yes, go ahead.
All right, just a moment, please. Are we looking at a presentation?
Yes, we see it.
That looks great.
Great, thank you. I wanted to just very briefly run through the history of this plan. It stems from last year. As many of you know, the BQE triple cantilever section that is between Atlantic Avenue and Cadman Plaza was reduced from 3 lanes to 2 lanes in an effort to preserve the structure while plans to fix it are pending and being discussed. As a result, there has been more congestion on the avenue, especially closer to the BQE, west of Court Street or so, as drivers are lining up to get onto the roadway, the Queensbound roadway. Because of that congestion, members of the community have complained to our department about honking, traffic, gridlock, etc. There are a lot of things that can be done by traffic engineers to remediate this. We here in parking have been asked to do what we can. We've noticed that some of the congestion can be traced to double parked trucks delivering goods to stores on Atlantic Avenue. And we feel that providing a sort of, for lack of a better term, a relief valve for these drivers would help maintain the 2 lanes in each direction of travel. In other words, if a delivery driver has a place to pull over, then they will not have to double park and block traffic. So that's where this started. Excuse me. Here we go. There's also a safety consideration. This is for what informally you might call a heat map showing the relative density of crashes related to double parking along Atlantic Avenue. The corridor, the study corridor here from 4th Avenue to the BQE is is outlined in black. As you can see, there are some pretty intense intersections. Very briefly, what we did to generate this list of crashes was to read the reports written by the police officers who responded to the crashes. If they mentioned double parking, in other words, if one of the vehicles involved in the crash was double parking, then it will be on this map. So we're worried about congestion. We're also worried about safety. And of course, as you also, I'm sure, know, as the plans for reconstruction of the triple cantilever are still being hashed out. But next year, we can expect this section from Atlantic Avenue to Sands Street to be closed at various times and traffic to be diverted in according to which direction you're going on Atlantic Avenue. This is the this section of Atlantic from Hicks to Borum Place is part of the diversion off of the BQE. So we can expect to see a lot more, unfortunately, more cars and trucks driving on Atlantic in the coming year, I should say. So what we can do as parking planners is update curb regulations, which on Atlantic Avenue we have not looked at in quite some time, to help to reduce these instances of double parking, which is why we're suggesting these loading zones that you saw on the map earlier, to enable the trucks to pull over in places that they will pull over. In other words, that we can't expect drivers to park across the street or around the corner when instead of double parking, but we can expect them to pull over to the curb where it's possible. So we feel that loading zones, and I should be clear, we're talking about approximately 50-foot loading zones, which is a very small percentage of the block. And importantly, these loading zones would only be in operation for some times of the day. I heard about Ms. Carroll mentioned this earlier. We are not proposing 24-hour loading zones. We are proposing loading zones, the times to be determined, but generally around the city when we do this, they operate from, sometime in the morning till sometime in the early afternoon, depending on the needs of the businesses. So we're not talking about taking away parking spaces 24/7. There are, as have been mentioned, some challenges to this plan, and we understand that. Placards is a big one. Everybody, citywide, this is a problem. Everybody's worried about placard use, placard abuse. We, as we already do, we will continue to work with the police department to get their help in directing enforcement to Atlantic Avenue, not only generally, but especially against placard abuse. We have as an agency, we have a relationship with the police department, and we have lines of communication with them. As I said, the loading zones would only be active for some of the day. I'm sorry, I'm moving on to another challenge, customer parking. As you mentioned, it's important for merchants to have places for customers to park. Although, as everybody on this call is aware, certainly this is one of the most transit-rich neighborhoods in New York. Many of customers of these merchants are not driving, but some of them certainly are, especially if they're picking up larger goods. In order to ensure that there is metered parking available for passenger vehicles, we can consider putting what we call spur meters. Those are meters on side streets off of main thoroughfares like Atlantic Avenue, for example, Clinton Street, Henry Street, Pick Street, and so on, that would encourage turnover. And so instead of having a car sitting there all day because it's only alternate side of the street parking, we would have a meter that limits parking to, say, 2 hours, thereby giving more customers the opportunity to park near Atlantic Avenue. And as I mentioned, there is a lot of other access to these stores on the avenue. Transit, I mentioned, there's also many large indoor private garages on and near Atlantic Avenue that passenger vehicles can use. So this is the map that you briefly saw before, showing loading zones. This is a preliminary plan. We did speak with the BID about this a couple of weeks ago. It certainly is subject to some change as things move forward, especially depending on things like the possible reorganization of some bus stops, which are often at the corner, which is a good place to put a loading zone. So if we can get some bus stops moved, which we're in talks with the MTA about, we may be able to more efficiently distribute these zones. But essentially on blocks that have intensive retail need, we are proposing a loading zone on just about every block. As I say, not the entire block, just about 50 feet of it. That way, drivers can reliably and consistently have a shot at accessing the curb to make their deliveries. Excuse me. So the side street meters I mentioned, we can also adjust the time limits on meters. This is something we do all the time. If we want to encourage even more turnover, we can change a meter from a 2-hour meter to a 1-hour meter, for example. We also have some other tools on our belt, like we have 15-minute zones. We have neighborhood loading zones, which permit passenger vehicles to quickly load and unload goods or people. And as I mentioned, the moving around of the bus stops might help us more efficiently distribute the zones. I want to keep this short, so I'm not going to talk for too much longer. I know time is limited. This map shows the 18 zones along with the existing zones, of which there are very few. And the blue indicates, as it says up here, the bus stops. I think I will, I have more information. I have more things to say, but I'd rather respond to questions, I think, than keep talking to everybody, because I know time is limited. So I will leave it there, and let's move on to whatever the next step is.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lenore. Is there anyone else from DOT who wishes to speak? Emily, is that?
Oh, no, I have nothing to say tonight. I'm just here to listen to all the comments and report back to Keith what's going on. But Michael's presentation essentially sums up our perspective of why we need these loading zones.
Okay,
But I
thank you,
see
Emily.
things, yeah.
Okay, and I take it that's the same for you, Matt.
That's
Garcia.
correct. So hi, everybody. My name is Matt Garcia. I'm the Deputy Director of the Parking Planning Unit. But yeah, I think Mike covered everything. I think just broadly, I think from an agency perspective, because certain users like commercial users, bus users, et cetera, have no choice but to use the curb, we as an agency have to prioritize their needs sometimes above customer parking, for instance. But yeah, maybe I'll just leave it there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Garcia. Okay, so with this, I'm going to start opening it up to committee questions. I'm going to start off. Okay, Mike, you mentioned that you're looking at changing, moving the bus stops, okay, to different locations. Did you actually talk to anyone about that, or you just decided that this is something, an option that you're looking at? Because, come on.
We are in a conversation with the MTA about a bus stop, about bus stops on Hicks and Henry Streets. If I could share my screen again, I'll show you what I mean.
Okay, by all means. I was curious if you actually had discussions with the BID about that, and also about the meters. One of the things about meters, if you shorten the meter time, it will not allow people that much time to actually shop.
That's true. That's true. And that's why we adjust meters depending on the needs of the corridor in question. For example, meters near hospitals, colleges tend to have longer durations than meters on shopping streets, because visits to those places tend to take longer. So we try to accommodate those users. And retail districts, and most of our meters are 2-hour meters. It's just, I mentioned it only because it's something that can always be fine-tuned as time passes, as we see how the zones are being used.
Well, if you shorten it to 1 hour, one of the things I'm looking at is that doesn't give a person a lot of time to actually shop.
I can't argue with that, but it does give more people the opportunity to shop. If a car is only there for an hour, another driver can take the place and obviously visit some stores. I would be eager to hear from the BID about any data they have about how long people tend to visit stores on Atlantic Avenue, and we would certainly take that into consideration when programming our meters.
Okay. I'll let some of the committee members now answer questions. Sid,
I'm sorry, may I just make one more comment?
Sure, by all means.
This, excuse me, this, if you see where my cursor is here, there are currently 2 bus stops on Atlantic between Clinton and Henry, westbound. The specific talk we're having with the MTA is about consolidating those 2 stops into one stop on the other side of Henry Street from this stop right here. In other words, on the west side, on the northwest corner of Henry and Atlantic. That would allow us to maintain passenger vehicle parking where this number 3 zone is, and instead put a loading zone where the current bus stop is. That's all I wanted to say, just because I know that this is a frighteningly long line here, this number 3, but it's although it's not finalized, it's likely that I don't want to say it's likely, it's up to the MTA, but I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get the bus stop moved so we can use that instead. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just out of curiosity, are those 2 different bus stops or just one bus stop? Because sometimes they have 2 different stops for two different routes.
These are two different bus stops for the same routes, the 61 and 63.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Sid, I'm going to have you wait. Let the committee members go first. Okay. Committee members have questions, please let us know. Okay, Ms. Peterson, I see your
Yeah,
hand.
just a quick question. Well, actually, more on the side of a comment. This is obviously quite a massive undertaking, and there are many things that have to be considered, and I'm glad that some of those considerations are already upfront in terms of what has to be dealt with. I do know, and I'd like to hear more about it, but I do know that there is along Atlantic Avenue at over down by Hick Street, you have the NYU emergency room facility set up there. You have nursing home on one of those side streets. You have further down the senior center. And so when this plan continues to unfold, I just hope that everything is on the table for consideration to make it so that no one community or one area of the community is overburdened in any way as a result of or inconvenience of. I think that's important. So I appreciate all of the conversation about considering these various things, and the bus stops is another a situation for people going down near that Hick Street part of that area. Like I said, with the emergency room, the nursing home is on the side street, and I think it's important, and any spillover that goes into perhaps some other direction. Haven't studied it. I heard Sand Street was put out there, and so it's my hope that there's no one community section of the community that's overburdened. That includes Sand Street, or if you think to redirect something a certain way, that, you know, sort of coming around over a certain way, you can then bump into that Farragut public housing area or some close proximity, you know, there too. And so I will just keep my ears open and my eyes affixed to where all of that is going to be going. So I appreciate the presentation, and I just love, you know, being informed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Ms. Gilman, I see your hand raised.
Thanks. I'm curious, Mike, if you can speak to the kind of study and data you guys worked these zones back from, you know, how extensive the conversations you had were with which merchants. And obviously we have a new ED with us, with Kelly now, and kind of what your plan is to work in partnership, hopefully with the organizations who know Atlantic Avenue best, so that we can make sure this rollout happens with full consideration as much as possible. Versus, I know sometimes when we're looking at these drawings and working just DOT to MTA, with kind of one walk or a few walks through a neighborhood, it can be one perspective. And I want to make sure while we're on the call together tonight, as well as with some transportation CB2 reps here, that we basically have all information and parties on the same page, and working from the same information, and before things are signed and sealed, that we can make sure that conversation continues. So to the question, basically, how did you arrive at these places? Kind of how extensive has your merchant conversation and investigation been? And if you can just kind of get us up to speed there.
Sure. Yeah, let me start by saying, thank you for your question. Let me start by saying, this is a plan very much in progress. Our meeting with the BID a couple of weeks ago was the first time we've spoken with anybody about this plan. We have not spoken with any merchants. This is not something we're looking to install tonight on Atlantic Avenue. We're eager to work with the BID and the community board and the merchants. As far as the placement of the zones, first I'll say that, as I said before, what triggered this proposal is congestion along the corridor. So that's a big that's another big chunk. Of course, we're concerned about the needs of the merchants. We are also concerned about people traveling along Atlantic Avenue, and about people who live along Atlantic Avenue dealing with gridlock and stopped up traffic all the time, which I don't think I have to tell you about because you all live on or near it. As far as the placement of the zones, there are some blocks where we are not proposing any truck loading zones because there's very little retail on those blocks or for other reasons. Otherwise, one of our strategies in cases like this is to put many small loading zones along a corridor so that drivers can predictably and reliably assume that there will be a place for them to pull over instead of driving around looking for a place to pull over, and hopefully instead of double parking. So we looked at land use. We looked at instances of observed instances of double parking. Of course, as I showed you before, we looked at crashes that can be traced back to double parking. I think I'm not sure if that answers your question. Is that what you were looking for?
Yeah, that's helpful. It's helpful to know, obviously, the data working back from actual crash incidents and transactions. Helpful to think about the larger kind of CB2 issue of the cantilever and the pressure that's going to be on Atlantic. I think the missing piece in my mind would be on the ground, the avenue as it exists with all these merchants having quite specific needs and loading times and unloading times, and to, as this rolls out, make sure you're working with that in mind and with the bid in mind as a partner in this discussion, because they're going to be able to be a liaison with you with the large number of businesses that service Atlantic Avenue. So I understand the need coming from BQE work and want to make sure that what is going to go on the ground here, however best it rolls out, is going to actually serve these merchants and serve this need. Because right now there are existing loading zones that are frankly not used, where you'll see consistent double parking without any enforcement. And the idea of adding more loading zones that may also not be used and that may also add on to the problem you're trying to solve. I want to make sure these merchants are really a key part of how you guys are doing this, because that seems to be in the service of their business. We need to know kind of peak hours, peak customer times, all that information on top of what you're all already working off of. So however we can continue that conversation to fill in the gaps here, I hope our board and the other kind of bids that are on this call can be of use.
We I know you're not asking me a question, but let me say, we here at DOT would absolutely welcome any information from merchants on Atlantic Avenue about the hours and days that they receive deliveries.
Okay.
Or send out deliveries for that matter, if it's the kind of business that delivers things.
Great.
Great, thank you, Kate. Cyril, I see your hand raised.
Thank you, Bill. This is a question for Kelly with the bid. You listed quite a few recommendations. I was trying to put them all together, but my question is, your members obviously have discussed this, I would imagine, and are you basically, would you like to have the DOT limit the loading docks to a certain number to accommodate the merchants and also have a flow of customers in a proper manner? I mean, what is your goal here? I think from what I'm hearing, you're just beginning the conversation with the DOT, but I wanted to hear, like, basically, I think the placard issue is probably one that probably, from experience, that's a very difficult thing for the DOT and the police department to actually work out. That seems to be an issue. But my question basically is, what are you hoping to have the committee do? Your recommendations were widespread. There were quite a few things, but I want to hear the core of what you're looking for so I can understand it much better. Thank you.
Cyril, if you check the chat, you'll see in the chat the Atlantic Avenue bid has recommendations. Can you see the chat?
I do, Bill, but I'm wondering. It's quite a few issues there. but I was trying to pinpoint what are the members really focusing on. There's quite a few things. Study the existing TLZs. It's a lot of studying. I'm wondering what is their what would they like to see happen in an optimum world with these loading docks? Obviously, there's going to be loading docks, but I'm just wondering. Maybe the question is just too far-fetched, but I'm not getting the whole thing. It's a lot of lists. There's a lot of things there, and a lot of things of hopes and wishes. But I'd like to hear a couple of specifics if possible. If not, that's okay. I'll list this and just wait to see what the answers are as they negotiate with the DOT.
Okay, fair enough. Do you wish to respond? Kelly? You're muted.
Can I respond?
Yes,
Yes.
please, Sandy. I just texted. I just was kicked out of the meeting and rejoined, so I missed that. So please, if someone could help me, thank you.
Sandy, you want to respond for Kelly?
Yes, so to Zero, DOT over the last years, and we have this in our memo, DOT's diverted trucks and car traffic to Atlantic Avenue, causing an increasing burden on the corridor, which is reflected in, what was being said tonight. Trucks that are overweight, the 3 lanes on the BQE were reduced to 2 lanes in both directions, and trucks that are overweight are directed to come off and they come down Atlantic Avenue. We know that. And also other projects like the Skirmahorn redesign eliminated a lane of traffic, so that's diverted to Atlantic Avenue. 4th Avenue going northbound, when cars get to Atlantic, they can't go north on 4th. They have to turn on Atlantic, turn on to 3rd to get back to Flatbush. So we get traffic diverted here. So that's one issue. And we're a Vision Zero priority corridor, but we're treated like an expressway. So the permit parking is a big issue in this. Mike said to us, I think it was Mike when we met, that the zones, the truck loading zones, will be competing with the permit parkers. In other words, if you go over, Kelly mentioned Trader Joe's, if you go over there, the permit parkers are in that loading zone all day long, from like 8:30 to 4:30 when they leave work. And these are personal cars. When we're talking about illegal permit parking, we're talking about personal cars, getting free parking. Customers can't park, the trucks can't pull over to, they have to double park. There's no place for them to be. So if the, and we were looking forward to working with DOT parking on this. It could be a way, if it's enforced, to get rid of the permit parkers, because they come early in the morning when the loading zones would be, if we'd have the multi-use zones from 7 to 11 truck loading, and then from 11 to 7 in the evening, the customers could park. But if the permit parking isn't addressed, there's no sense in putting these loading zones in, because they don't obey the law. You can't just say loading zone and for trucks only, because they already break the law. They're lawless, the city workers who park for free. And Mike, tonight you mentioned lots of garages. I don't know. Yes, there are a bunch on Skirmahorn and at Court and Atlantic. There's the garage, for example. But if you're saying there's available, why don't drivers park in the garages? So you're talking about customers, but what about the people who work for the city and bring their private cars, to work and park free at the meters? and takes revenue from the businesses and the city. So the permit parking issue is, I think, a big deal in this, because just to repeat myself, if they're parking in Trader Joe's all day, why isn't there enforcement now? We can't expect there to all of a sudden be enforcement. Let's see you do it now to see how, you know, because to put the loading zones in doesn't make sense if the permit parkers are going to be in them and competing with the trucks.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I
Yeah.
think you've gone beyond the actual question itself. Okay, with that, are there any other committee members? I can't see them right now, unfortunately. Tia, could you? Thank you. Any other committee members with questions?
Yeah.
Okay, then I'll open it up to, sorry, repeat that, please. Who's that?
Yeah, did you mean? bid
No,
members?
CB2 board members. I'm going to CB2, the Committee for Economic Development, and then I'm going to the full board, members of Committee Board 2. Okay, Sid. Okay, since no other committee members wish to speak, you have any comments, Sid, you want to share?
First of all, thank you for letting me speak. I will try to make this relatively short. Many of us have lived through removing the no parking 4 to 7 on Atlantic Avenue that was there and took literally years to get removed. The opening that up has made it much better for the merchants down there. And frankly, the problem here mostly is between Smith and Hicks. It's not that much further down, although it is a little bit further down because of the construction by 3rd and 4th Avenue. For the most part, the major issue here is on the issue from Smith and on. The weekend closure of the BQE will not be helped significantly by putting loading zones in that will also make no parking on the weekend for the drivers. So that if you're going to do this, my recommendation is to do it when most of the deliveries take place, which take place Monday through Friday. There are relatively few, not totally few, but relatively few on the weekend. And the merchants can tell their delivery people that they need to come during the week and not on the weekends. There may be a few that come on the weekends, mostly for the grocery stores, but most of the major deliveries take place during the week. Putting more parking on the side street and for meters is great in theory, except for one problem. It becomes, unless you make it a no permit zone, unless you put up signs that say no permit, there's going to be relatively little enforcement, and there's going to be whatever parking you put on the side street will become parking for permit parkers. You know, I do tell the story many years ago that my wife was working for the local city councilman whose office was at Court Street, right off State, and a DOT car parked when the movie theater was open, and the employees from DOT parked illegally and then went into the movie theater. So you know, this is a continuing problem that goes on that will not be helped unless it becomes a no permit zone. And there's just no way around it. The police announce, oh, we do this enforcement, we do this, we do that. I will be kind and not say that it's completely baloney, but it's mostly baloney. That they have cut down on the number of permits, but they're a significant amount of both illegal permits. They're people who just put their construction stuff in the front windows. The only way you're going to do this, if it's going to work at all, is to make it a no permit zone. And you know that where of course, where do they do that? They do that in Manhattan. They don't do that in Brooklyn. It's time, if you're going to do this, to do it as well. So as I said, the major area is during the week from Smith and Court to Hicks, and no permit zone. And what we're supportive of what the Atlantic Avenue people are recommending, whether it's from 7 to 11 in the morning or 7 to noon. I'm happy to work with them and to do this, but unless you're going to make a commitment to make it a no permit zone, all you're doing is creating additional parking for the permit people.
Sid, for clarification, when you say we support, who are you talking about?
You say again?
When you say we support,
In
who are you-
general, we had a discussion about this.
You're talking about the transportation committee.
We had we weren't able to do a formal, but we
Sid,
didn't have enough time.
Sid, clarification. You're talking about the transportation committee supports the Atlantic Avenue bid suggestions.
In general, yes.
Thank you. Okay. Next I see Ms. Morales, you had your hand raised.
Yes, so I agree for the most part with what Sid mentioned. I just also wanted to add that you have central booking there. There are many city agencies around there. And so we're asking law enforcement, who tends to be the majority who commit these placard abuses, to basically police themselves, right? And so I think that, and this is with the city agencies, and I don't know what, if any, the board plays in it, is that something has to be done to make sure that the police department enforces these placard abuses. The second thing I wanted to say was that I think that it also takes sometimes it takes the community, right? A group effort. As a former small business owner, and I owned a business in the mall, we only had loading times, deliveries at certain hours that you could deliver to the mall. So I made it my business when I was dealing with the companies that I ordered from. They knew that they could only deliver during these times. Plenty times what I see is that even with a loading zone, if the driver, sometimes they're lazy, they don't want to walk from the corner to the middle of the block. They'd rather double park regardless. So I think it's about really enforcement and also making sure that the merchants themselves speak to the companies they deal with, manufacturers, whatever it is, and let them know that these deliveries can only be done within certain hours, and they have to go to the loading zone. So just, bit of advice, and those are my thoughts. Thank you. Sorry.
No problem. Thank you, Ms. Morales. Okay, I see another board member have her hand raised. Ms. Roscoe.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I see Kelly stepped away, but my hope is to meet with her sometime soon. It could be lunch, drinks, coffee, something to introduce myself and to, get to know you. Congrats on your new role. Mike, you had said something that made me cringe. You said that there's going to be more traffic along Atlantic Avenue, not something that I am looking forward to at all, or increased traffic along Atlantic Avenue. However, one of the things that I would like to see is traffic enforcement agents guiding traffic. I don't see that. I typically see that along Flatbush Avenue during game days and concert days from the Barclays Center, but I don't see it along Atlantic Avenue consistently. And that is something that we need. And it's so funny because I'm looking outside my window, and usually when I'm on a Zoom call, all you hear is honking. And right now it's quiet. I'm just like, the day that I'm talking about this, how is it quiet? It's never, ever, ever quiet. And right now I'm looking at the cars. I'm just like, guys, why aren't you honking today as I'm about to talk about this so people can hear what I hear? But anyway, yes, that is something that I would like to see, traffic enforcement agents consistently along Atlantic Avenue, just knowing that there's going to be an increased influx of traffic. The honking is just very, very loud. It's hard to focus, to concentrate, to rest, to sleep, to nap, to study. So if we could have that, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll have one last comment, and then I'll entertain a motion from the committee if they wish to do so. Anuya, sorry, I mispronounced your name, I apologize.
No worries. It's Anuja. Thank you everyone for presenting. I'm wondering if the DOT would be open to giving this presentation to the BID membership. I think many people are not informed about what's going on, and I think it would also be helpful to hear from them directly. And I know this DOT has presented at BID meetings in the past to our membership, and it would be a good conversation to have.
Yeah, I think we're definitely open to that. We can have that discussion. I think we have at DOT, we have a street ambassador unit with a merchant survey process. So I would want to make sure that we're not kind of bypassing some type of DOT merchant process. But yeah, we're definitely open to having that discussion.
That would be great. And I know that you've presented at our public meetings in the past, and I think it's been very valuable because, merchants are busy running their business and they're not often knowledgeable about what's going on the avenue in terms of traffic, parking, and other policies and things that are occurring citywide. So it would be great to do that, and it'd be a great opportunity to partner with you all.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Anuja. Okay, so it looks like it's been a very lively discussion. There's been a lot of interesting topics brought up, both by the BID, by individuals in the community, and also by board members and committee members. So there seems to be a lot of space in between, and it probably a good idea if individuals met to have further discussion. Ms. Gilman, I saw your hand raised.
Yes, I was curious before, potentially there's a proposal for the committee to actually consider a vote on. I'm wondering if Mike or Matt or Emily, if you guys can speak to the consideration of a no permit zone, just in response to Sid and the issue that really sits kind of at the top of this, which is like, are we going to actually get to the problem we're trying to get to if we don't do that step? And I think with all of our life experience and know-how, relying on police enforcement of placard parking isn't going to instantly change today. So if we assume that continues the way it has, will you, essentially commit to not allowing the continuation of that by actually establishing no permit zones as a part of this kind of on Atlantic Avenue?
Do you want to make that a
So-
part of the of the motion?
So that's a question that we can get back to the board about. That's some higher level discussion that we're not going to find a solution for today. So happy to get back to Taya with more information.
I would think that'd be a part of the motion if anyone wants to make a motion.
Yeah.
I'm entertaining a motion.
Mr. Flanoy,
Yes.
I wonder if before we go to that step, I wonder if Ms. Carroll or representing the AABID, I wonder if your position has changed at all given the open nature of this discussion and the considerable feedback that DOT has received.
Ms. Mueller, that's a good point. Thank you for asking that. Ms. Carroll?
Yes, I'm here. I think that we're still learning a lot. I think that this has been productive and that going forward, there's still much to do. I really like the idea of a no permit zone. But I still think, like was mentioned during the other presentation, there's, this is still very much a starting place. And I'm processing the information as it's coming in, and I'll need to confer with my board as well.
Can I say something?
Ms. Balzola, right now this is for the committee.
Who did you call on me?
Ms. Sandy, this is for the committee at this point in time.
Okay, I'm in the Transportation Committee.
This is the Economic Development Committee.
All right,
Okay, thank you.
thanks.
Okay. With that, does anyone want to make a motion? Mr. Scala, I see your hand raised.
I don't want to make a motion. I think what Kate has just recommended, I think, if I may, I think that's a good starting point, the permit issue. And I think as a community board, as the economic committee, I think that would be one of the main issues that we should vote on. I agree with her. Regardless of what the bid is thinking about, or what Kelly had just mentioned, she's assessing all the information. I think we as a committee we've listened to what's going on, and that seems to be one of the real main issues. So we should recommend to the DOT how we feel and vote on that.
Well, I believe the motion right now currently is the Atlantic Avenue bid. Okay, feels much more comfortable if in fact they have a conversation with the DOT based on the issues that they brought up. So I believe the motion should be along those lines. Okay, not what the committee wants, but I think that Atlantic Avenue bid and DOT should have a conversation.
I agree, Bill, but couldn't we as a committee, as a side issue, recommend our feeling or our want as far as the permit issue goes? Regardless of what they're doing, we could vote on that and accommodate the bid. But I think that seems to be a crux of the issue for us to just to sort of let us say how we feel about that particular issue. Could that be separated or not?
I think we should leave that up to the Transportation Committee. Okay, Ms. Ihorn.
I'm not sure I see anything to vote on. So it sounds like it's a mutual admiration society, and the BID and DOT both agree that creating a forum for further discussion and to further discuss the no permit zone in particular is agreed upon. And I don't believe that DOT or the BID have submitted anything that they would like us to continue to recommend and provide a letter of support for. So I'm curious if you have a recommendation as to what motion you were looking for.
Okay, I'd rather not do that, but my suggestion would be to make a motion of support that the Atlantic Avenue bid actually have the items that they listed, okay, be in a conversation with the DOT to resolve them or at least examine them. So it's a motion to support the Atlantic Avenue request.
But doesn't that seem a little premature considering DOT and Atlantic BID are going to have a discussion about having a discussion already?
Well, we don't know if they actually will have that discussion. We're suggesting that they do have that. We're making a recommendation that they do have that discussion. Just because they're saying they may have a discussion doesn't mean they will. They've had one discussion so far. Let's continue. We'll make sure they continue to have those discussions. There's a lot of things that they need to talk about, and I want to make sure that they do talk about them. Well, the committee seems to be, Ms. Gilman, I see your hand raised.
I think given I'm a member of the Atlantic BID, I don't think I can be, making this motion, but I think in general, if we're taking what Lindsay's saying, which I think is right, and it seems to be a friendly discussion between these groups, between Kelly as the new executive director and our DOT representatives on this call. I think making sure that we have a partnership kind of committed to on this call, and that they're going to work in conversation before this plan accelerates or goes further, in consideration of what will be discussed by the BID. And I think those items sound like there are a few pending, but there's more that Kelly wants to kind of hear from on the bid and from the community. I think the committee wholeheartedly supporting that conversation as a prerequisite of committee support for this loading zone change. Essentially, that for members of CB2 economic development, that we believe that the Atlantic bid, as well as transportation and economic development, should be a part of this conversation with DOT in order to have kind of our stamp of approval on anything. But Lindsay, I agree. I think there obviously isn't a tangible vote in terms of our measures that we support right now. That sounds like it's a conversation that's still happening. I think it feels clear that there's a lot of objection to the plan as it stands now. It also sounds like DOT is receptive to this being a plan that's in progress and not final. So wanting to make sure that we're all looking at the same thing.
Okay. So Mike, Emily, okay, and Matt. Okay, are you looking to continue to have discussions with the Atlantic Avenue bid?
Yeah, we are committed to continuing discussions with the Atlantic Avenue bid as well as other stakeholders. So this is the first meeting that we've had with the board. It will not be the last. And Mike, if you have anything you want to add.
I would like to reaffirm that we at DOT are interested in hearing specific needs and desires from business owners on Atlantic Avenue, and in that sense, are very eager to work with the bid. Yes,
Yeah, I'm on the meeting. Would you heat up the broccoli?
Cheryl, you're okay. Kelly, are you okay with that commitment?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. With that, then we will end this discussion and move on the agenda. Thank you very much for your time. Sid, I'm assuming that you're going to be following up on this.
Of course.
Okay, excellent. Okay, thank you very much for attending, Sid. Emily?
Yeah, thank you so much. We just want to say thank you so much for having us tonight. And again, as we said before, this will be a continuing conversation, and we'll get back to the board with whatever information that you guys need going forward.
Yeah, we'd like to have the information as far as the data that you are getting your information from. If you can forward that to the board, I'd appreciate that.
Okay.
All right, and to the Transportation Committee.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Make one recommendation.
Lindsay, we're moving on. Okay, I left it open for quite some time and no one went to make a motion. Okay. So with that, okay, on with the agenda. You're welcome to stay if you wish. That's not a problem. Okay. Okay, so next.
Thank you for having us.
Not a problem. Thank you very much for your time. Okay, next on the agenda is the chairperson's report. Okay, as far as the chair's report, I basically sat in on the 1 Hoyt Street CAC, okay, and listened to one of the first presentations that they gave. Still in development. They just basically started up, and for right now, there's nothing really to discuss. They just gave us an update on what was going on with the men's shelter at 1 Hoyt Street. Okay. Also, I also sat in the board of the CLS bid, and we had a discussion, okay, with Lincoln Wrestler, and what I discussed with Lincoln Wrestler is I was concerned about both the open streets, the shared streets, and also the bike lane on Skirmerhorn. There are some issues that I brought up with him and with him, and currently right now his his people are currently talking to me on a regular basis, so we'll get an idea of what's going on. But there is an issue right now with the shared streets on Hoyt between Livingston and Skirmerhorn, where the delivery trucks have no place to park, and they're actually parking on the sidewalk to make deliveries. So we're looking into that to see if there's something we can do as far as changing that. And there's also an issue with the open streets in the event that there is a discussion about the parking lot on Schermerhorn and Hoyt, that they will have an exit onto Hoyt Street. And that will not be able to do that during open streets. So that's an issue also that's under discussion. Okay, and basically that's it. What I would like to do, Ciro, you're currently on the cantilever for, is that correct? For the
Yeah, I'm
BQE?
on the, yes, BQET.
Okay, if it's possible at all, Ciro, in the future, if you can start giving us reports when you actually meet with them, I'd appreciate that.
I'd be happy to do so.
Okay, until we actually have a board member on that committee, if at all possible.
How would I send it to the board office? Just send them a
No,
memo and,
no, during this meeting, you just basically tell us what's going on.
okay, all right.
Okay, thank you, Ciro. Okay, and that would be new business. Community forum, I'll be opening that up. Does anyone in the community forum have anything they want to bring up? Sandy, I saw your hand raised quite a few times. I take it you do not. Anyone else? Community? Okay. Any new board or committee business for discussion? Ciro, I see your hand raised. Ciro, do you have?
Yeah,
yes.
I had a question about the fact that since we're the economic committee, is there a way for us to assess the unemployment figures in our area? I mean, it may be too small to maybe just a small microcosm of how the employment issue is going on in our specific area, or is there economic growth in our area, and where is that growth coming from? So we can maybe assist our community with jobs and increase the employment in our area. I'm not sure it can be done, if there's statistics that we can sort of finalize, but I keep on wondering, where do we stand in this economic picture as a small CB2 community? If that's possible, that would be great for us to have it updated maybe monthly at some of our meetings to see how we are growing, or are we not growing?
Okay, sure, that's a good idea. I'll look into that, okay, with some of the committee members. Okay, Miss, I'm sorry, I might mispronounce your name. Miss Labowitz?
Hi, yeah, Sue Slabowitz. So my name is Sue Slabowitz. I'm from Impact Brooklyn, which is a community organization in Central Brooklyn. And I'm just here to announce that we're having like a holiday marketing program for minority and women-owned businesses in Central Brooklyn. I'm going to drop a link to a form that any businesses that identify as minority or women-owned can fill out. And be a part of this holiday marketing program. So we're going to run a campaign that's going to do a sort of a centralized holiday program. It's going to be called Shop Brooklyn. We're going to have flyers up in all participating businesses, and we're going to do various promotional things to drive foot traffic, get people shopping at these businesses at this critical time. We know businesses are hard hit. We know that they're really looking for foot traffic for sales in this holiday season. And we hope that businesses in your district can benefit from this. And if I'll also drop my email, they can feel free to reach out to me. My name is Sue Slabowitz again at Impact Brooklyn, and happy to answer any other questions about this. Thanks very much.
Sue, I have one question. When does this actually begin?
We're going to be taking, when does the promotional period begin? I can't actually remember. I believe it's the week before Thanksgiving. So, so pretty soon. And
when does the market open?
When is the market? Oh, so it's not a market specifically, but it is going to be sort of a virtual campaign where we're going to be distributing flyers. That'll be virtual, sort of these promotional stuff on social media, through actual sort of media outlets, and then physically in stores, we're going to have sort of a unified look throughout Brooklyn.
Okay, and how can we help you with this?
So I'm going to drop a link to a form in the chat. That's going to, so if you know of businesses that are minority or women owned, they can participate. They can sign up to participate in this to help us drive foot traffic to their business.
Okay. As you can see, Ms. Mueller has put something in the chat. Make sure you do follow up with that.
Yes, definitely. Thank
Okay.
you.
Ms. Graham, I see your hand raised.
Hi, good evening. My name is Elizabeth, and it's funny because I wasn't sure if this was the right platform, but I might as well go ahead and say it because someone talked about the unemployment numbers in our community. So I'm actually an equity consultant with Alloy Development. They are, well, the project that I'm working on is at 80 Flatbush. So that's right across the street from the Whole Foods. And there's multiple phases within the project, but right now they are looking for individuals that are interested in construction. So the reason why they hired me specifically is because part of the problem with such big projects is that they hire people from outside of the community for the employment. So my task is to find individuals within our community to at least get a priority in that in filling that position that's available. So I'm fairly new and we're fleshing things out now, but I just kind of wanted to get on the call to, just kind of see what you guys do. So we can't control everything regarding unemployment, but at least there's like a small segment that, we might be able to help.
Okay, Ms. Graham, what I'm going to suggest is you put your contact information in the chat. And I would also suggest that there's certain employment agencies in the area you might want to reach out to, including the Brooklyn Navy Yard.
Okay, yes. So one thing, I know that they really wanted to target the NYCHA developments within the area, but we're also going to be, so we're trying to figure out a way how we can reach other disenfranchised individuals as well, because not everyone who needs a job is in those developments. But I know right now for certain, anyone in those developments, we have about 5 or 6. So I'm going to put that down in the link. Specifically the locations that we're recruiting for and my information as well.
Not a problem.
Okay,
one of the things that we do is we do put out a newsletter on a regular basis, and we do have a outreach to several different organizations throughout the community.
Okay, great.
Bill,
Thank you so much.
Bill, I had a question for
1 second.
the representative.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. Let's go.
Have you reached out to, we have quite a few homeless shelters or areas where homeless people are housed. Have you thought about reaching out to those areas and organizations to see if you can get some work there? That would be a really interesting opportunity for those people.
Yes, that's kind of the reason, that was part of the reason why I actually wanted them to expand outside of the NYCHA developments, because I know that there are a lot of shelters. I mean, I think there's one like 2 blocks away from me. And I know that one of the components for them receiving housing is to have gainful employment. So, that's the reason why I said, hey, I think we need to look outside of these NYCHA developments.
Sure.
So I'm in the works of creating those contacts and partnerships so that we can make that happen.
Okay, well, good luck, Ms. Graham. Okay, thank you
thank you.
for letting us know about this.
All righty, thanks.
Great information. Mr. Du.
Good evening, Mr. Flournoy. Thank you so much for calling upon me. Before I begin to speak, I should just acknowledge that I am chair of the Myrtle Avenue Business Improvement District and also a new board member of Impact. I wanted to just update or give some history on the permit parking. Community Board 2 Transportation Committee had come up with a solution for this with the upzoning of downtown Brooklyn. And the city at that point had agreed to place a 400-car parking garage under the park of Duffield Street as part of the Community Board 2 community benefits that went along with the upzoning of downtown Brooklyn. Of course, though, over several administrations, that underground parking lot got eliminated. So that parking lot was going to be designated for permit parkers because we have loads of government agencies in the downtown Brooklyn corridor, all of whom give permit parking to their employees. So a lot of the permit parking is a political process that we have struggled with for decades. If you remove the permit parking from Atlantic Avenue, it just goes elsewhere in the district. So the question is it possible to get a location for permit parkers that is off the street as opposed to having them choose what blocks and sidewalks they're going to park on? Because that's going to be difficult to enforce. Irrespective of what DOT agrees to, they're not going to be able to enforce keeping permit parkers off of any particular street in downtown Brooklyn. It just doesn't work that way, or it hasn't worked that way for the last 2 decades. What we also did this past week, there is a parking garage that wants to expand on Skirmahorn Street, and they're going to double the number of parking spots that they have. And we did inquire as to whether they would be willing to enter into a contract with the city to have those additional spots or a portion thereof committed to city permit parkers. So I'm just putting that out there so that we can get that floating in the ether to try and come up with a solution, because just moving them off of Atlantic Avenue doesn't really solve the community district problem. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Du. As a matter of fact, I was at that meeting, and I think that would be a great solution to have permit parking in a new garage once it's built. Okay, not entirely the entire garage, but a portion of it. They're currently in discussion. Hopefully the contracts will be actually signed. So fingers crossed. But first they have to resolve the issue of how to get out of the garage.
Yes. There was no environmental impact study that I'm aware of, Mr. Flanoy.
I know, Mr. Du. I know, Mr.
All
Du.
of these issues. And so we're now having to deal with issues after the fact. And that's another issue that we need to be much more proactive on.
Thank you, Mr. Du. Okay. Ms. Gilman.
Thanks, Bill. I appreciated hearing that so much, John. I feel like it colors the conversation and brings a couple decades worth of watching this issue move in Brooklyn. That's so helpful versus us trying to look at one block, or for someone like me who's only been on the board for a couple of years. So thanks. And Bill, I really appreciate having all these different groups on tonight. So having DOT be talking with the bid, with us, with Sid from transportation, and getting a sense of gatekeeping. Like, is this conversation actually happening? Can we make sure that it continues to? We all know that DOT can be really elusive. And I think using our voice, especially now that there's an ED at Atlantic bid, to say, hey, listen, like all the players are here. We want to see something happen. And to have our committee like putting measures up for the full board to look at. I think I really support having economic development be kind of putting teeth in the way that I see you doing here. So I appreciate kind of giving the committee tangible things to review. And I know tonight it felt more like an ongoing discussion between those groups that's not baked yet, but can feel like a lot of energy kind of to make something move forward. So here to support it.
Thank you, Kate. Okay, and last person I see is Sandy. Sandy, you're muted.
There we go. So, John, good points about the permit parkers. In 2004, I was also involved with the downtown upzoning plan. But it's troubling because we, before the bid on Atlantic Avenue, asked for a no permit parking zone. And the councilman at the time, I don't want to name the wrong one, so I'll just say at the time, didn't want to do it because he said what John just said, the cars will go somewhere else. I have a problem with Edson. I was on that call too about, and I heard the request for working with the city, a contract with the city to put the permit parkers in there. But the permit parkers, these are their personal cars. So should everybody get the same treatment where, you know, anybody who brings their personal car down gets free parking, whether it's not getting ticketed for illegally being at meters or given free parking? To me, it's illegal. And we have two standards in the city, one for city employees and then one for everybody else. So everybody else gets ticketed. We've had people, the 4 to 7 parking that Sid mentioned took us 18 years to get rid of. And because the Atlantic Avenue Betterment Association, that was the most important thing to the merchants where that parking restriction was. So we worked for 18 years. Just when the bid came in, we got that back with Commissioner Sadat Khan. So there's just a culture in the city. Any mayor could stop this, but they're not going to. So I think, you know, the discussion has to, it's good to discuss these things, but the reality of, you know, what we ask for and want and think is right, you know, I don't know. I'm 77 now, and I don't know if I'll live to see the permit parking issue get addressed. I hope it would. I hope the city would do the right thing, that our elected officials would have courage, and that the mayor would have courage. And we can have a city where a segment of the people can do illegal acts that everybody else has to abide by or pay the penalties. So when we had the 4 to 7 restriction, the cars were ticketed and towed, the customer cars, but nothing happens to the permit parkers who, and quote, like Kelly said in the beginning, because they don't all have permits, they're not all legal, whatever they're doing, that doesn't get addressed. So, and the other thing that doesn't get addressed, and I'm going to stop after I say this, the bikes, the mopeds, the e-bikes on the sidewalks, that's not addressed. And people are getting injured. That's it.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thanks.
Okay, if there's no more public comments, okay, the community forum, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Kate. I thought for a second there, you guys wanted to continue to keep this going.
No, such a helpful discussion, though.
Second.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, no one opposed? Thank you so much. Great meeting. I will see you all soon.
Thanks, Sandy.
Good night.
Thanks, everybody.